Hey everybody, welcome back to All Fiction is Fantasy. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. So I really enjoyed doing the last video outside. I just kind of liked the vibe. It's more casual, and I decided to do one again today. And today is going to be a kind of a reading update. Some of the things I've been reading. I have been neck deep, head deep, drowning in tentacles lately, reading a lot of Cthulhu mythos fiction. And that is because on my board game channel, I am starting the Arkham Horror Retrospective. And the past year, I've been reading all kinds of Cthulhu mythos fiction for that, and I'm going to continue doing that, and I will probably be neck deep in tentacles for at least the next year. So the books we're going to talk about today are these right here. We've got the first of the Titus Crow trilogy, the Lovecraft, A Look Behind the Cthulhu Mythos by Lynn Carter, the Shub-Niggurath Cycle from Chaosium, the Cthulhu Mythos Encyclopedia, the Book of Yig, Revelations of the Serpent, and the Curse of Yig. Let's start with the Brian Lumley book. So I just finished the first three books of the Titus Crow series for the second time. This is the second time I've read them. And those three books include Burrowers Beneath, The Transition of Titus Crow, and The Clock of Dreams. And God, do I love these books so much. They are so much fun. Brian Lumley is my favorite author of Cthulhu mythos fiction. And I love his style. I love his wild pulp style. I love the things that he interjects into that world. I find it really interesting. It's fun. Like the games, he injects a sense of heroism in his game or in his books. And he really has a lot of hope for humanity. His take on the Cthulhu mythos is much more positive. He kind of has shrunk the power curve of the Cthulhu cycle deities down and given humanity a little more, raised their power level to where they can fight. It's almost like the newer Godzilla and Kong movies, the Monarch universe, where the humans have a chance to fight back against these titans. And I really, really love these movies. I keep saying movies. I've movies on my mind right now. But yeah, so the Burrowers Beneath, this says, in which Crow is alerted to a menace in the earth that gnaws at the very foundation of man's domination and his home planet and seeks to usurp him. Two men share a terrible secret and make their lonely stand against subterranean horror. And so this introduces us to Titus Crow and his friend Henri Demarny. And they are kind of the prototypical Arkham Horror, Arkham Files investigators. They are occult detectives in a way. They are interested in the occult and in the Cthulhu cycle deities. And so they learn about them. And in Burrowers Beneath, they learn about this giant worm, Shub-Niggurath, and its minions, the Chthonians, that are burrowing up through the ground in order to take over the world. And this sets off a chain reaction of events that continues in the transition of Titus Crow. And here we see that fleeing from the Burrowers, Crow discovers the secrets of time and space and learns the lore of the Great Old Ones. But Lord Cthulhu seeks not only the domination of Earth, but the destruction of the Elder Gods and the space-time continuum itself. Demarny answers Crow's call from the depths of space to join him in the battle for universal sanity against the forces of evil. So Burrowers Beneath has a little bit of that kind of more terrestrial-based Lovecraftian style horror, but starting with Titus Crow, the transition of Titus Crow, Lumley just blasts his fiction off into the solar system, and we have these interdimensional transportation and fights with lasers, and Titus Crow goes to a planet of robots and has his body rebuilt to be this kind of weird cyborg hybrid robot thing. They have this ship, the Clock of Dreams, that they can fly out. He is having to avoid the Hounds of Tandalos, who live in between spaces in the universe, and they're hounding him. They're chasing him throughout the universe, and he finally ends up kind of in the city of the Elder Gods, Elysium, or the planet of the Elder Gods. and ends up going into Earth's dreamlands. And that kind of leads into the Clock of Dreams, the third of the series, and that is from fathomless ocean depths, Cthulhu's dreams disturb the minds of men to reshape the waking world. Diverted from his search for the lost Elysia, Demarni pilots his space-time machine into subconscious worlds of dream and nightmare in a bid to save the lives and very souls of Titus Crow and Tiania of Elysia. And the third book focuses more on Morini, on Henri, and his trek into the Dreamlands, his quest, following kind of the footsteps of Lovecraft's character Randolph Carter. And Henri is related to another Lovecraft character named Laurent de Marny. And Laurent, or Etienne, is it Etienne? Yeah, I think it's Etienne de Marny, his grandfather or something, who was kind of Randolph Carter's right-hand man or something. Now, in the Lumley universe, Randolph Carter and Etienne de Marny, they are living in this city in the Dreamlands, and they're kind of ruling over part of the Dreamlands. And Henri de Marny, Titus Crow's friend, he goes on his quest, and his dream quest of unknown Kadath, basically goes through all of the same places, Ulthar, the city of the cats, and all of that. And he teams up he rescues Titus Crow from the clutches of Nyarlathotep, and together they fight Nyarlathotep and Cthulhu. And it's so cool. It's so bombastic and fun and outlandish. I love it. And I've never read the follow-up novels. There's another trilogy, so I'm really, really, really looking forward to that. I love the depiction of Titus Crow and Henri. Their friendship is so cool. They really care about each other. They care about each other's well-being. Titus Crow kind of brings Henri into this world of occult happenings. At first, Henri's a little hesitant, but he very quickly learns that his friend Titus Crow is not crazy. His friend Titus Crow knows what's going on. And so, yeah, just fantastic. If you've never read these and you want a different take on a Cthulhu mythos style of fiction, something more exciting, something more heroic, something more outlandish, then the Titus Crow books are really, really good. I'm about halfway through this nonfiction here, Lovecraft, A Look Behind the Cthulhu Mythos by Lynn Carter, part of Lynn Carter's Ballantine Adult Fantasy series. And source of Dread Cthulhu, source of untold horrors, deep, dark whisperings in the walls, dead sounds of monstrous steps in the night, the rush of gigantic wings, and secrets hushed before they can be spoken. Here are its beginnings. So this is just kind of an overview, a concise history of the Cthulhu mythos. Lovecraft talks about Lovecraft being very, very highly influenced by Lord Dunsany, of course. Lord Dunsany is the gods of Pagana. Greatly influenced the Cthulhu mythos, and it just kind of goes through a history starting with Lord Dunsany up through Lovecraft, and then up through the sea. This was published in 1972, so I know he does mention a Cthulhu Reader's Guide that was published in 1969 here. And he also offers up a reading guide at the end, and it's pretty interesting. He mentions 119 different stories to read. So at that time in 1972, Lynn Carter was able to find 119 stories that he considered to be part of the Cthulhu mythos. As of now, there's probably like 10,000 stories. So there's been a lot written, but it's been a lot of fun. I enjoy Lynn Carter's nonfiction. I think he was really good at writing biographies and just writing about fantastic fiction in a very easy to read and understandable way. I'm also reading through this right now, the Shub-Niggurath cycle, and I have just finished my very first Simon of Gita story here. Fantastic. So Simon of Gita is a character created by Richard L. Tierney. Of course, Richard L. Tierney wrote the Red Sonja novels with David Sim. David Sim? I think that's his name. But yeah, he wrote the Red Sonja novels. And his character, Simon of Gita, is a biblical era. So I believe this story takes place in around 30 AD. And I've heard that, I'm pretty sure that at some point in the Simon of Gita stories, they do mention Jesus. So when I say biblical era, it's very, very literal. But he was a slave slash gladiator who was rescued by some kind of wizard, and the wizard taught him some magic, and now he goes off and fights demons and stuff. And Shub-Niggurath is mentioned in that story. The story I read is called The Seed of the Star God, and it's really cool. I loved it, and I can't wait to read more. I have the whole collection, Swords Against Caesar, which is the whole collection of Simon of Gita short stories. So looking forward to reading that. That's the only story I've read in here so far, but I will be reading more for my project with the Arkham Horror board games. But this has, let's see, The Horn of Vapula by Lewis Spence, never heard of them. The Demonic Goat by M.P. Dare. The Ghostly Goat of Glamara by J.S. Leatherbarrow. The Moonlands by Ramsey Campbell, finally somebody I've heard of. The Ring of Hyades by John Glasby. 1,000 Young by Robert M. Price. The Seed of the Star God, Richard L. Tierney. Harold's Blues by Glenn Singer. Dreams in the House of Weir by Lynn Carter. Visions of Yadith from Lynn Carter. Prey of the Goat from M. L. Carter. Sabbath of the Black Goat from Stephen M. Rainey. The Curate of Temphill by Robert M. Price and Peter H. Cannon. Grossi by David Kaufman. And To Clear the Earth by Will Murray. So a lot of authors I've never heard of in this particular collection. But among the most familiar names in the Lovecraftian litany, Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat of the Wood, the Goat with 1,000 Young, is never met personally in Lovecraft stories. It's only mentioned. This is probably one of the more mysterious of the great old ones here. But is often referred to in rituals and spells. This deity was spread and adapted as Lovecraft crafted and revised tales spawned by other authors. Here, for the first time in a comprehensive collection, is all of the relevant tales concerning Shub-Niggurath. So, looking forward to reading that more. While I am reading all of this Cthulhu fiction, I have my handy Cthulhu Mythos Encyclopedia always by my side. This was written by Daniel Harms and says, this is the 3rd edition of Daniel Harms' popular encyclopedia of the Cthulhu Mythos. I've had an older copy of this a long time ago when I was much younger. I lost it and I recently bought it again because it's just really handy. Just if you're reading a story, you can look up the monster or the character or the place or the spell, the item, the book, whatever. It's all in here and you can read about it. You can read about other authors who have mentioned it. It has kind of a cross-referencing concordance style thing going on, but it's just really handy, especially if you want to do some kind of studies on this stuff and learn more in depth. And then finally, I read 2 books on Yig, because Yig is one of the great old ones in the core box of Arkham Horror. And so I read, of course, Lovecraft's original revision that he wrote for, what's her name? He wrote this for somebody else, Zelia Bishop. So Lovecraft was actually paid to write Lovecraft stories that were submitted by other people, and he would write under his name or their name. Very confusing. So I think Robert M. Price once wrote an introduction or something. Is it in here? It's like, did Lovecraft write Lovecraft Pastiche? And yeah, he kind of did. People paid him to write stories under their name. Very weird. But after he died and after they died, they were kind of, I think, republished under Lovecraft's name because he did everything except come up with the idea. And so that's kind of where Yig comes from. Yig is like the snake god with roots back to like South America. And what's interesting is in the Curse of Yig is a story that takes place in like the Oklahoma territories, which is kind of unique for Lovecraft. It does deal with some Native American stuff, so it's a little jingoistic in the way it deals with some of the Native American stuff. But I was a little bit surprised that he did treat some of the shaman-style characters with just a little bit of respect, at least more respect than I was imagining. And then I also read this newer collection because there's not a lot of stories about Yig, and so I wanted to find something else. There's a big dog barking somewhere. Oh, the Book of Yig, Revelations of the Serpent. And this is 4 or 5 novellas. We have The Snake in the Garden by David Hambling, Andrew Doran and the Journey to the Serpent Temple, really fun, by Matthew Davenport, Still Life with Death by Mark Howard Jones, Revelations by Pete Rawlik, and Coda, The Return by David Hambling. My favorite was Andrew Doran and the Journey to the Serpent Temple. Reads a lot like an Indiana Jones style pulp adventure where they're off gallivanting around the world looking for treasure and dealing with the children of Yig. It was really fun, and yeah, I just wanted to read more about Yig because there just aren't a lot of stories about Yig, and I wanted to be exposed to the snake god a little bit more. So alright guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. We will talk to you later. Bye bye.